On this episode of American Ingenuity, we explore the creative legacy of Walt Disney and discover one of the most revolutionary inventions in film history.
Walt Disney really transformed the whole industry of animation. It was the kind of thing that was instantly recognized by the public. If you were in the business of making cartoons in the 1930s, you're in the business of trying to catch up with Walt Disney.
But as groundbreaking as Disney was, it was a system nearly 200 years old that enabled him to secure his rightful place in history.
The American patent system has propelled the American economy and society to heights that frankly have never been known anywhere on Earth.
See the real story behind America's greatest inventive achievements on this episode of American Ingenuity. In 1790, as the fires of the recently won American Revolution were settling, the blaze of yet another revolution was heating up. Fueled by America's thirst for technology, it was during this industrial revolution that the very first U.S. Patent Act was made into law, paving the way for an explosion of creativity and innovation never before seen in history.
The framers of our Constitution recognized that we had to have some way to incentivize people to take that leap, to take that risk of inventing, investing both their time and their resources. In the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 provides for limited monopolies for inventors and artists for their respective writings and inventions. And then in 1790, the first Patent Act came out. And at that time, it was a little bit different from what we have today. The law provided that any two of the Secretary of War, the Secretary of State, or the Attorney General, any two of those could, if petitioned by an inventor, grant a patent. We eventually got an actual patent office. It was at one time part of the Department of the Interior, later Department of Defense, at one point the Commerce Department that we have today. There have been many, many evolutions, but at every step of the way, the motivation was the same. From 1790 to today, it is to motivate invention and to let people put themselves out there and risk with the possibility of reward.
And over the years, Americans have perfected the system down to near science.
Technically speaking, we really don't patent the machine, the thing you can see. It's the process of making it, using it, manufacturing it. The effect or the impact of the American patent system, whether intended or not, is unique to the American experience and the foundations of America itself. We have a population that's told you can do anything, you can become anyone or anything you want, and if you take that and dream and develop and work hard and invent, you could end up being, well, as close to a king as we can have in American society.
But does it still work? The American patent system has plenty of critics, saying the system is broken and calling for complete overhaul.
What would we do without it? What if that pharmaceutical company, faced with the question, do we develop this life-saving medicine? It's going to cost us millions and millions of dollars. Without a patent system, you go through all of that, and guess what? Your competition gets to take it for free at the end.
No matter your opinion, there is no arguing that the American patent system has affected all of us, and for many, offered a second chance for life.
Many people don't think about the patent system on a daily basis, but in some cases you could literally say, but for the patent system, some of us wouldn't have our lives. For example, medical device companies and our pharmaceutical companies, it's okay to invest millions of dollars and countless hours of effort, because if in the end we succeed, we're protected from competition for a limited time. And throughout American history, we've seen that motivation, that it's okay to put yourself out there and to move society forward. And we owe much of our American way of life and our successes over the years to that very system.
Known to millions of fans around the world as simply Uncle Walt, there's no denying the incredible impact Walt Disney had on the art of American film. But perhaps few fans realize the contributions made by Disney on the technology of film and how that impact affects us today.
You hear people talk about him making the cartoons more realistic. In fact, it was never Walt's intention to make them realistic. You would never watch his cartoons and think you were actually watching a live-action film. Because if you were going to do that, you might as well just shoot a live-action film. What Walt, I think, was more interested in doing was drawing you into the story and making you feel like everything kind of belonged together.
A method made possible by a revolutionary invention called the multiplane camera.
It gave the illusion of depth when you saw an animated cartoon. Up until that time, it was very flat, and you didn't really connect.
So the multiplane was really designed to do that. The normal technique for shooting cartoons would be a flat camera table. If you wanted to suggest a feeling of depth and you pulled the camera in closer, the second the camera starts to move, it's obvious that you're looking at a flat painting. So with the multiplane, you could separate these elements and the camera would look through them and you'd get a real feeling of depth because there really was depth. The idea was that they would make all of these elements movable independently of each other, and the camera could also move independently of any of them, so you'd have a wide range of combinations.
And while the basic principle behind the multiplane was simple, the reality of achieving Disney's vision turned out to be extraordinarily complex.
They had to form a whole new department called the Scene Planning Department, which was a combination of artists and engineers who would take the concept of the scene and then figure out how to actually make it work on the multiplane. Pretty much everything that happened there flowed from Walt himself. And Bill Garrity, he was kind of the go-to guy for any technological developments at the studio during this time. When the patent was registered, his was the name that was on it.
An example of true creative ingenuity, the multiplane camera was recognized in 1937 by the Academy of Arts and Sciences for the advancement of film production.
Walt was always involved in everything, and it was more of a pushing the boundaries of what was possible. A perfect coming together of all these different experiments, and I'm sure audiences sat and watched these shorts and noticed the difference.
You couldn't ask for a more quintessential American original than Walt Disney. He really was a man of the people, and he started with nothing. In fact, there was a quote from him at the time that the multiplane was first unveiled. He said, "I remember when I used to build these things out of apple boxes and baling wire, and I always wanted a really swell camera, and now I've got one."
From life-saving devices to simple modern-day conveniences, there's no arguing that American innovation and creative spirit has helped improve the lives of everyone on Earth. Join us next time for more history, more controversy, and the real story behind America's greatest inventive achievements on American Ingenuity.